Welcome to Vintage Helena, a series of profiles of individuals who have made many good things happen in our community and the state of Montana. This is a profile of Sandy Shull. Sandy was born in Great Falls, but Helena is her home now. She's been here for 2 decades. And when she came to town, she started her business with her mother, Birds and Beasleys. Now she's been in the business herself for the last 20 years. Sandy is a mover and a shaker in downtown Helena, and she loves this town. I know you're going to find her profile of great interest.
Hey, Chuck. Chuck is our #1 employee. He comes in and he's here all the time. He doesn't go home with us. He stays in his cage. So Chuck's job is to greet people and to entertain small children so their parents can shop. But he is our 4th cockatiel, and it started with a cockatiel that a woman came into the store for Mom and said, I have this cockatiel, my roommate keeps sticking her fingers in the cage and teasing it, and the bird's really stressed out, and Mom, being Mom, says, oh, I'll find an owner for it. And so she puts the cockatiel in the store. The next thing, she sees a little kid go back, lick his finger, stick his finger in seed, come back and hold it up to the cockatiel, who we named Beasley. And Beasley would sit there and he would eat millet off your finger if you were a little kid.
Wow.
So we used to have millet, you would dip your hand and then you do it in, and then the next cockatiel you could just feed sunflower to, and you could trust him. But that one, the kids would look at him and go, hey Mom, look at, and he would nip you a little bit, so we took the millet away. But he is definitely one of our employees. And so we've always gotten them as rescue birds, so when we lose him, we kind of send the word out, and one always shows up.
Cool.
So we can help someone else out. My parents, moved to Great Falls in the late 50s. My dad was a physician, and Mom, they had 4 children, and I was the youngest of the gang, and so I was born in Great Falls, and then my parents divorced, and so my mom moved the 4 kids to Missoula. So we grew up in Missoula, and along that path there she met Ray Beasley, who had 3 children, and we combined a family of 7 kids and all grew up there. And then I had the opportunity to go to school and had the opportunity to go out of state, so I went to Colorado State University for my bachelor's, and then came back to Missoula and worked for the American Diabetes Association for a couple of years. And then when I was in my undergrad, I fell in love with the higher education aspect of programming and student higher education. So I went to Corvallis at Oregon State and did a master's program in student services. So my background is outdoor recreation, park administration, youth agency, with a master's in student services. So I'm highly qualified to sell birdseed and art in downtown Helena. So then I worked in Eugene, Oregon for about 10 years. And then we had an opportunity to come back to Montana, my partner and I. And so we were looking to move. We didn't know where we wanted to move to. We were pretty sure we didn't want to go to Montana. Or return to Montana for many reasons. I'm that generation where you graduated from high school, you went to school somewhere, and then you left Montana for a job for 10 to 15, 20 years until you finally decided you needed to return because of aging parents, because you're sick of the city, because you needed to raise children. So I'm in that era where, you know, there wasn't jobs in Montana in the late 70s and 80s for young people. You really had to go somewhere else to get a good paying job. I can remember I returned and I was getting a job and they paid me $12,000 a year in Missoula. And I was excited, I was thrilled. There was health insurance, it was full time, it was $12,000, and I thought, you know, I was pretty lucky. And that was with an education. So when we started looking around for places we wanted to move to, and we wanted to do the Northwest, and, you know, we'd move into towns and say, well, we look at towns and go, well, we can't live there, it's ugly, we can't do that. So a bunch of things happened, and one day I said to a friend, I said, you know, if someone would just call me up and tell me there's a great place to live and they love and adore me, it'd be way easier than trying to find a place to live. So my mother called the next day. Seriously, she calls out of the blue and says, would you consider moving back to Montana? This is why it'd be good for you. If you ran the store, you could, you know, your in-laws are here, your father's here, your whole family's here. Wouldn't this be great for everybody? And I said, well, okay, well, I wasn't really thinking about returning to Montana, but it fit all our criteria of what we thought was important. And our friends were funny because at that point in Oregon, they're like, oh, you're going to move to Montana and run your own business. And I'm like, obviously you people have never lived in Montana or run your own business. So, you know, we have that, Montana has that mystique of, you know, living on the mountain tax or, you know, the fresh air. Of course, everyone makes livings, and we have all this free time, and life is fun, and it is in many ways. But you know, it costs to live in a rural area, where high-paying jobs aren't there as much. So, anyway, my mom had started Birds and Beasleys about in 1993, and this would have been 1997 when they called us up, and so we literally, all the doors opened, everything fell into place. We moved here. I can remember we were looking to see how we wanted to, what we thought, so because we'd visited my parents, they lived out on Remini for years and years and years, but we never really did anything in Helena because I didn't go to school here. I don't have friends here, so when we came to Helena, we just visited my family. So we didn't really know what Helena was like, so I can remember we got in the car, my partner and I were driving through Helena on a Friday evening going, whoa, this place looks dead. There's not much happening, you know, no lights are on, you know, people are in their houses. And then we start laughing because we don't go out either. So it was like, what do we care? We don't go out and eat out and go out dancing and that kind of stuff. So it was pretty funny because our perception was, oh, well, we want to have all this opportunity. And that was back in the days where you literally, nobody was open on Sundays. You couldn't get a Xerox machine. I mean, when people didn't have printers, they didn't have, you know, so if you needed to copy something, you couldn't do it on Sunday. And so part of that was quaint, moving back in. Excuse me. And some of it was like, really? But that's that divide that we have, is we want to move somewhere that's fun and quaint, but then we want all the services. So I think that's where Montana is right now, of how do we, and certainly Helena, how do we keep it a good town, a community, a town that cares about people, and still have the jobs that brings people? How do we handle new people, young people coming to town, and not having a bus system that's, you know, runs after 5 o'clock or on the weekends, or places that are open and are closed? And so it's that balance, and I think Montana's always done that balance of, you know, we give up certain things to have, you know, the freedom to run up onto Mount Helena. You know, in 5 minutes we can be on a mountain, versus, you know, I'm sure people in the city, same thing, they go, you know, we've given up this so we can have, you know, a restaurant and grocery stores and little places right there, right under my apartment. So anyway, that's kind of how we got here. It's been 20 years, which surprises me. I just hired my first full-time person. Oh, wow. So Birds and Beasleys has been in business 24 years, and I just hired my first-time person, and she's looking, we have this rock that says Birds and Beasleys established 1993, and she's looking at the rock, and she turns to me and she goes, that's the year I was born. so maybe that does make me vintage, yeah, if I'm now hiring people that were born the year we started the store. So my mother is a professional artist, Jane Shull Beasley, and she was very successful in Missoula, and she was a sculptor and a painter, but she did more clay sculpture and she did sculptures. And then when the 80s hit with the recession, she started doing what we would call the welcome signs and the flat pieces, and Ghost Art actually was her first place before Dave and Jerry owned it. The other folks, she would bring art over there. She's always had Archie Bray make her clay, so we've had a connection to Helena. And so when they moved to Helena, people knew her for her flat fragment work, the welcome signs and stuff, so they didn't know her for her sculptures, which I am fond of, but they knew her for her flat. So then also George Holton from Montana Gifts also carried her work, and they were talking one day about birdseed and different things, and she's thinking about starting out a little shop or have a place for a studio, and they were talking about birds, and she'd been a birder most of her life, and my grandfather, her father, was quite the birder. And they were talking, and George says, well, Jane, you should just start a store and sell birdseed and your art. And so Mom, being who she is, pretty risk-taking entrepreneur, is like, well, yeah, why not? So she and Ray looked around, and they found the building over there on Park Street. And it was just a lone building. It had been empty for a while, been Dorothy Bradley's campaign. It had been lots of different things. And anyway, they started the store, and They were trying to figure out how to name the store, and George Holton's the one that says, well, you have the perfect name. Your last name is Beasley, so call it Birds and Beasley. So it was like, that's how the name came around. It was like a no-brainer. And so we often get people that come in and go, well, what's a Beasley? And we'll point, and they're like, this is Mom, she's a Beasley. She's now 87 and a half. She was down here for the art walk, so she's still involved a little bit. She's our little icon, and certainly our magic for the store. Well, we have lots of birds here. The problem is we have a really big state. So birding is like the fastest growing hobby industry in the nation, but that is what I would call a life lister. That is a person who says, oh, I want to go see this bird. I'm gonna go down to Texas or Mexico and see 20 to 50 birds I've never seen before. So what's funny is we get a statistic in our mind that birding is the most thing. So I've talked with some of the economic people who've come to me and goes, okay, a birding person, great tourist. Discretionary income, usually a couple, they spend money, they go out to dinner, they spend 3 or 4 nights. That is who we want. And I've had many a discussion with those people and said, yeah, but Montana doesn't have the birds for those people. Well, yeah, but this is like, we need to go for that tourist. And this comes back to, we need to figure out who we are and who we want to go to. So I say, well, if you go to Texas and you're a life lister bird, you go down there and you spend 4 days, you stay in nice places, it's warm, you run around in about a 20-mile radius, and you see 30 to 50 birds you've never seen before. Okay? You come to Montana, in order to see 30 or 50 birds you've never seen before, one, we probably don't have that many, and a guy did a travel where he tried to see all of the birds on the Montana list. He spent a year, and there's like 415 birds available. He saw like 370 of them in a year. He spent $20,000 and drove like 25,000 miles, because our best migratory spot for warblers is in Westby, Montana, which is closer to North Dakota than Montana. It's in the far, far northeast corner, and these little birds fly through and they fall out of the sky. They're so tired, into this little city park. It literally has a bench. I have not been there because it's a 10-hour drive, I think, or more. And you see a bird you've never seen before, and then it kind of gets rested and flies off. Well, no tourist is going to come do that, where you're like, okay, so we're going to drive to Libby, then we're going to drive to Great Falls, then we're going to run down to the Red Rocks down by Dillon, and oh yeah, let's go to Westby. Well, we're not going to have that kind of visitor here. What we're going to have is someone who says, I'm coming to Montana because I want to see the parks, I want to see the mountains, I want to see my family, I've got a wedding, and I bird. So that's where the bird part comes in, where people say, oh yeah, what do you have here? So the Audubon's done a great job with some of their different programs, and we lead Saturday bird walks in the summer, so people can come and go to them and see what's going on. And some people see birds they haven't seen before. But in general, we have just a good, steady bird group. I mean, we don't have anything really flashy. Well, you're going to see chickadees, woodpeckers, nuthatches, pine siskins, finches, of course, the pigeons. Eurasian dove is a new bird. The eastern blue jay, which Susan was talking about, we're starting to get the eastern blue jay, which to us is a new bird. If you talk to someone from the east, it would be the magpie of the east. They're like, oh wow, who cares? It's an eastern blue jay. And we're like, oh yay, it's a blue bird. We don't get cardinals here. But we just have a good steady group, and there's some that migrate, like our meadowlark and our mourning dove and our bluebirds. They'll come in and they'll be here for the summer, and then they leave when it gets cold. And then the group that stays is the finches and the woodpeckers and the chickadees and stuff, the old reliables. And so, they're fun. I mean, you see them out there on a feeder when, in the summer they're really fun. You see them in the winter, they're like, oh, it's so cute. Thanks, for staying on there. Let's get them some food, let's get them a heated bird bath. Locals will be excited to see an eastern blue jay, a pileated woodpecker, the big woodpecker about this big, has been down on the lower west side all summer. There's a pair of them, and they're like prehistoric woodpeckers. And so people come in and they're like, oh, I have this woodpecker. And it's an old growth wood bird. So back in the 80s, that bird was worried about whether it was going to survive. It needed to have a tree about this big around at 30, 40 feet up. And of course those old growth trees were logged and fell down, and so they're like, okay, that bird is going to lose its nesting niche. So where is its environment going to go? And that bird then shifted down to a smaller tree and adapted to the change of its forest. So in town or in, I mean, we get pelicans here, people are fun. We get sandhill cranes in the valley. So are they an unusual or a rare bird? No. Are they excited for us? I mean, think about it. You're a Montanan. You're driving down the highway. You got the radio on. You're going really fast. What's the bird you can always hear? The meadowlark. Their pitch of their decimal, whatever, How is it when you drive your car you can hear a meadowlark? You can barely hear the person you're talking to in the car, but whatever that range is for a meadowlark. And what do most of us do when we hear a meadowlark? We say spring is here. It's like, oh, we made it through winter. The meadowlarks have arrived, our stuff. So Mom started the store in 1993, and she rented this from Aiden Myrie. Aiden and her dad own the whole complex, down the whole little bit. And Mom tells the great story of, they gave her a price per foot, and she took it as per month, and so of course, so she came back and I think the difference was hundreds of dollars, and I don't even know what it was, hundreds of dollars, and she said, oh, this is what it is per month, and Aiden's like, well, no, that's per square foot, and Mom's like, no, that's per month, and Mom, being who Mom is, got it. Did she really? Got it for how she wanted it, and it was just funny. So, but this building was empty. So here's where it ended. This is where we were, 1,400 square feet, and had a different storefront. This was Yacht Sons, beloved Yacht Sons by the Wong family, and it was before my time, but Jeff Wong still owns it. And it's funny because people come in and go, my grandparents and I, we sat right at that window. That was our booth. So people, fond memories of this building. Anyway, so the Wong family, they made a living here. They are long-term Helena people, good people. And Jeff, I have to thank him because when we moved from the old store to the new store, a couple things in my personal life had changed dramatically, and it was like, something needs to change at Birds and Beasleys. It needs to produce better things, so either bigger, smaller, stronger, fatter, skinnier, we need something. So I went to my friend Randall Green and said, I need a new location, and he said, well, how about Jeff's building on the Walking Mall? I'm like, Randall, how can I afford that on the Walking Mall? I mean, that is like the prime spot.
Yeah, look at it right here.
It sits right on the corner of the Walking Mall, and he said, well, you should look into it. I'm like, okay, and long story short, Jeff was very generous. He was excited to see us in here. He hadn't been in the store before. I can remember him coming over and going, looking at Birds and Beasleys and going, because remember, he's been in the restaurant business his whole life. He's a little older than I am. And he goes, people buy this stuff? Because that's not his industry. Right. And I said, yes, actually people buy a lot of this stuff, Jeff. And so
they don't need it to live.
It came together really quickly. That was like in March, and when we moved over, you've heard that story, when we moved. So literally we found the place in March. We needed to have the store up and running by Art Walk. And so one of my staff members and I were talking, it's about 2 weeks away, and we're doing some changes in here, not a lot. And she said, how are we gonna move? I'm like, I'm not really sure yet. And she said, it's too bad one of us said, we're not sure which one, said, well, why don't we just bucket brigade it over? And I said, well, I don't know, let's see, and I'll be right back. And I come back, she goes, where'd you go? I said, it will take us 120 people from that door to our back door if we stand and hand the store. She goes, you think you can find 120 people? I said, it's Helena, let's check. And so I said, the next couple people that came in, I said, we're thinking about moving the store in 2 weeks. Monday night, could you come down? It will only be an hour, we'll buy you dinner. And they're like, I'm in. All right, I can't, but I'll send my husband. And so we started going, and it started to build. We're like, well, let us know if you can come. And then it started to build, and I thought, oh, we better talk to the police department because I want to cross Park Avenue. So I talked to the police department, and he says, the chief says, that sounds like a hoot. And so they so you have to rent a police officer. I said, oh, that's fine.
Rent a car.
And I said, we could do that, because then now we get someone on Park Avenue with red lights, telling us that we should do this. So it was Mother's Day was Sunday, and then Monday my staff came down and we packed the store. And Monday night at 5:30, 165 people showed up. We lined the street. We literally moved Birds and Beasleys in 45 minutes. We had 45 minutes, we were done. And it did two things. One, it was way easier to move there. It was cheaper, it was safer for the art. And people said, oh, I just take my bucket and go. I said, oh no, everyone has to touch every piece. And you people go like, I didn't know they had this. Oh, this is cool. And then what I had was 165 vested people in the store, and you'd see them come in and go like, I helped move this. And what was fun is that we did that on Monday, because we had to have, financially, we needed to be open for Mother's Day.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and Monday we closed. Tuesday we brought the furniture over. Wednesday we started setting things up. Thursday we set things up. We opened Friday night for the art walk.
Wow.
And so people would come in, they go, like, I just bought bird seed at your place 2 weeks ago, and now it's you? And it was just, it was the best thing. It was the talk of the town that night. People were going up and down like, Birds and Beasley's moved, Birds and Beasley's moved. And just, the town was extraordinary. I mean, that's the part about Helena, is that, you know, here we are, we're a group, we say, hey, we're moving, can you help us out? And they're like, we're there. You know, and then I was talking to someone the other day and he said, I helped you move. I said, really, how'd you get involved? He says, well, I'm at Blackfoot having a beer and you all lined up, so I jumped in the line and joined in. So, that's the Helena piece. And I hope we don't lose that as we grow. That's my concern, is as you get bigger, you know, how do you keep it still quaint, where people pay attention to their neighbors, they're worried about if someone doesn't show up, and those kind of things. So our old store was about this size. This big, and about this big of the front thing. This was our cash register, which looked huge, our cash register counter that many of us spent, I'm sure Chuck, you and I spent time many a day shooting the breeze. We would sit here on this thing, and this is our cash register. And now it looks small in this group, but gone are the days of spending 20 minutes talking to one customer because it was fun, and now you're like, actually have to work. So we have two things. We have the birds. So this is the birding side, where it's bird feeders, bird baths, bird seed, what I would call the consumables. So what's neat about my store is that we sell you a bird feeder, but then you have to get bird seed from us. It's like having a pet and coming back for dog food. So you get in here and you go, oh yeah, I need to pick up bird food, and I need a gift for my mom. So yeah, so what we have in our store is we have mainly Montana-made art, art by Montanans, are handcrafted. We do have some other pieces that we have had to do some manufacturing. This is my mom's drawings up here.
Okay.
So this is what she's been doing lately. And so she's just magical. I mean, she's the magic of Birds and Beasleys. You know, she's the one who, you'd see people come in and they'd just start talking to her, and before you knew it, they walked out with a whole bird, you know, they spent $100 and buying a whole bird feeding station. You're thinking, oh my, I wonder if they really wanted that, you know. And then they would come back a couple weeks later and go, we were having so much fun. And you're like, oh, whew, you know, because she is good. She is magical. But she's also incredibly gifted as an artist.
Really
so,
beautiful.
but she's 87 and a half now and not drawing as much. We're hoping to get her kind of back into a few more things. But so then back here we kind of have art and gifts. So a lot of local pottery, and we really, as I say, we have I kind of, my niche isn't, I'm not an art museum or gallery. I have beautiful things that are affordable for everyday people, so that if you need a gift, we have lots of things $50 and under, because that's kind of where our budgets are. That's where I've chosen to make the market, is to have them be affordable gifts. We try to sell stories. Helena's good. I mean, I think we just have to figure out, like probably everyone else in the world, where we're going next, and how do we do it responsibly, how do we do it kindly, and how do we do a smart growth. What I like to do is connect people. You know, so it's about the community. It's about, you know, we all have resources. If we could share them, we would be better people.
Thank you for watching Vintage Helena. We hope you enjoyed this segment. If you'd like to suggest someone to be profiled by Vintage Helena, please contact us at HCTV. You can also contact us at Helena Civic Television if you'd like to make a donation to the Vintage Helena program.